Hi, it's Valerie from My Stitch and Dollyverse. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you the basics of my sewing machine. Let's go. Here's an overview of my machine. It is a Pfaff. I have had this machine, it's a Pfaff 1523. I've had it, I would say, about 20 years, probably, if not more. So I'm going to give you the basics of any machine. So as you know, here's the needle. Here is the foot, the pressure foot, and my level is right there. You can pick it up. I actually have a walking foot, so it has this little extra piece, if you can see that, back behind here, that helps the foot to go along the fabric. It's not a necessity. Some people really love having it. It helps on this particular machine and how it sews. But that's just an extra thing, not necessary. And then over here on my machine, I have different stitches here which I could push. This is the straight stitch and zigzag. All of these are fancy stitches, not necessary. And then these are the buttonhole. So it has a built-in buttonhole. In old-fashioned machines, they had like an extra attachment that goes on the foot to do the buttonhole, and then you just adjust the stitches. But this, you just push a button and it changes it and does these little zigzags. But this is the one I always have it on, and that is what you basically just need to use, is just the zigzag or straight stitch. This here is the stitch length. So on most machines, it'll be a number between, well, it'll have like a 0. Mine has a buttonhole. 0 to 5, I think, right? Oh, mine goes all the way to 6. I never use a 6. That's a very long stitch. So that's the length of each stitch when it's sewing along. And the normal number that most people use is 3.5, 3.25, depending on your machine. And then I use a 4 to 4.5 for a long stitch, which is a gather stitch or a basting stitch. So your basic stitches, though, should be about 3.5, 3.25, something between 3 and 4. And the best way to measure that is to sew a piece of fabric, take a ruler, and then count how many stitches there are in 1 inch. And there should be between 8 and 9 stitches per inch. And up here, this is the tension for the disc that's in here. And this is just like if you're hand sewing, you're going to pull it taut. Well, the machine has an arm that goes up and down, and there's 2 discs that squeeze like this, and the thread goes right between those 2 discs. It holds the thread tight so that it's not just loose and flying around and you don't get tight stitches. You'll get like loose, crazy stitches. So this is the tension between those 2 discs in there. This is what this controls. And it's not necessarily something you adjust a lot unless you're sewing thicker fabrics like denim or thinner fabrics like silk. Like those are the 2 extreme, opposite end fabrics that you would be doing. Otherwise, if you're doing just a regular cotton, you wouldn't have to adjust this to be, more tension or lighter tension. But I don't ever adjust this. I kind of leave it how it is. I don't really need to, but it's something that you could just play around with, sew for a little bit, and see how it affects your stitches, and then just adjust up or down until you get it where you want it to be. This is my zigzag. So 0 just means a straight stitch. 1 is like a very slight zigzag, and 2, it gets wider and wider. 5 is going to be the biggest, the widest zigzag. And then also, besides doing that, you also want to adjust your stitch length here, because if you make it smaller, then your zigzag is going to be closer together. If you make it longer, it's going to be like this, going across like that. It's fun to just play around and kind of adjust things. You're not going to really hurt anything. This puts my needle right in the middle of right here. And if I go all the way over to there, it puts it on this side. And what that does is that you can sew really close to, like if you're stitching in the ditch or something like that, it's sewing really close to the edge there. And then same thing, if you go the other direction, you can go all the way over on that side. Also, it's good for sewing zippers, but mainly I do the middle one. And see up here, it shows you all sorts of different, like that says stretch stitch, all these different kinds of stitches for different reasons. I don't ever do any of them, but it's something that you could definitely do. It tells me the numbers of the different feet as well. They have the number on the actual foot. If you look, that says 0, that's the 0 foot. These are the feet that came with it, which is cool to have it on there. And inside this thing, I have all sorts of stuff. I have tape. But here's some of the other feet. Like this is my zipper foot. And see how it can't sew right in the middle. You have to move the needle over to one side or the other. Some of these I've never even used, but I've had this for years. I have a bobbin in here. Here's the buttonhole foot right here. And this slides up and down, and the little red marks are what you kind of look for when you're doing the, you know, the buttonhole. I have this. This is to clean underneath, you know, with the bobbin to get any kind of dust and stuff out of there. And then I'm going to open this, and this is called a swinging arm, and I can actually take it off. Sewing a cuff on a you know, a shirt, and you got to put the cuff right on here and sew around, or a cuff on a pair of pants or something. Otherwise it would be difficult to sew without having, you know, the space to put that on there. As you can see too, on the plate, you can see it actually marks seam allowances. So the width of the foot, that's 1/4 of an inch, and then it goes 3/8, 1/2, 5/8, 3/4. And then I marked a 1 inch when I was doing some gathering for some skirts. And you can see, this is what this is for. Lint and stuff just comes off of, you know, when you're sewing anything. And this little, you can also use like paintbrushes and stuff to get in there, like the little school paintbrushes, to get that lint, because it does absorb the oil in the machine, and it, you know, doesn't do it any favors. So this is the bobbin. I have a bobbin case. That's what this little thing is a bobbin case. It holds the bobbin, and it has this little arm on here so you can pull it out. It you know, it comes out like that. And then inside of there is the bobbin itself. When you are sewing anything, there is a bottom thread, which is the bobbin thread, and then a top thread, which my thread is right here. And what they do is that the top thread comes down and it loops around the bottom. If you want to see how it works, it loops this thing right here that's moving around in a circle, has a little hook, and it grabs that thread from the top. See, right there it is. And then what that does is that it grabs the bobbin thread from the case down below. See, this has a thread that comes out. It grabs that thread, and that's why you see stitches, you know, on the top, and then you turn your garment over and you see stitches on the bottom. It's because they're hooking together and sewing the garment together, the pieces together. Sometimes I think it helps to understand how the machine works so that you can, you know, better understand the problems that it might have. Okay, now I need 2 hands to show you here. This is the bobbin case, like I said. And then this is the actual bobbin, and the bobbin will be wound on the machine, which I'll show you how to do that, but it needs to be pretty tightly wound onto here, or you're going to have problems if it's not. You really have to have it consistently on there pretty tight for it to sew well. And then you can see the bobbin itself, it has like this little cut right here. And so when you put the bobbin in, I look at it as a number 9. So the thread is going, you know, over the top down this side here, if you can see that. So to me, it looks like a 9. And then I put it in here, and the opening's there. and then I move it to where that opening, that little slice is, and then it goes underneath this arm. This is a little arm here, and it has a little tiny screw. And yes, you can loosen and tighten this, but I don't think I've ever done that on this machine. I've had it for 20 years, maybe a couple of times. It really, the littlest, tiniest turn will tighten that really tight. So it's not something that you really need to adjust very much. But if it's really loose, then yeah, you should, because it will affect the stitches down below. But you should be able to hold it like this. On industrial machines, if you do this, it'll go down a little bit at a time. But you should just be able to hold on to it like this, and it's good. So then I see where the top is the opening piece. And I have this little lever here. I put it right into the machine, and I push it until it clicks. So that's the thing. It didn't click because I pushed it on the right way. There, it clicked. Did you hear that? Let me do it again. There we go. And then I grab this part, the thread. I hold on to this and I wind. There's a wheel over here. I wind the wheel always towards myself. Never go away, because that's the way the machine runs. So you want to go towards yourself always. And then it grabs that thread, and there it is. It came up. And you want both of the threads to be on the top of the machine. And I just close that, and I'm going to put this back on here. There we go. Most modern machines will have these little arrows that show you how to thread the machine. And then this is where the bobbin gets wound, is right here. And it even tells you in which direction to put the thread for the bobbin. So one kind of tip, some bobbins only fit certain machines. There is a universal bobbin that you can find at the store, but for Pfaffs, they're a little bit bigger. They're a little bit different. So Pfaff machines have particular bobbins to buy. Other machines usually will do the universal. To make sure, you can always take that bobbin and go to the store and measure it and make sure it does look exactly the same. But when you're doing the bobbin, so the little wheel here has like a little mark there, and then this has like a little hole there, and that is supposed to go on there like that, and because it just fits snug on there. And then when you're winding it, this is often the mistake people make. You should click it over. Most machines will have like that option to click it over. And then on the wheel on the side, you probably have like a little inner wheel that you loosen this so that your machine isn't sewing at the same time you're winding the bobbin. It releases that mechanism so that the needle doesn't go up and down while you're doing this. It doesn't really make a difference unless you have it threaded. You don't want to do that. It will gum up your machine underneath. So make sure it's not threaded through the needle when you're winding the bobbin. So on my machine, I actually have this little thing in here that you put your thread on in here, but you have to have this little piece too. So I've seen people put like rubber bands too, because when you put it on here, you need something to stop this from flying off once it starts sewing, because it's going to be pulling the thread off in that direction, and you don't want it to just pull the whole thing off. So it has to have some kind of stopper like that if your machine has that. That's what that's for. I've also seen people put like little rubber bands here so that their spool doesn't fly off. The other way, mine has a second thread holder here, and that's for doing different kinds of stitching. But if yours has one like that, then you just put it on there like that. And it doesn't matter if it's going this way or this way. I like it to go behind on this side, because when it's on this side, sometimes I get hooked on it, and I just don't want that to happen. So even when it's going in this direction, it could go fast enough to fly off. So this thing is just always handy to have it. It weighs it down. Okay, I'm going to try and thread this one-handed. Okay, I have that. And I can see that my arrows say to go in here. Okay, I put it in there. See, there's a little slot in there. Okay, and then I'm going to go around this little hook here. And then I go down, which, see, there's the tension disc. There's 2 of them in there. Sometimes you can see both of them. You want to go in between. And then I go down and around and back up and around. There's the hook. There's the arm right there. And the arm is the equivalent, as I was saying, of a person, you know, hand sewing and pulling that through. So this just pulls the thread through the machine. And then I go back down again, and I can go behind these 2 little things here. It just keeps the thread in a good place. And it's kind of like flossing. You have to go behind that little part. And then I go through the needle, so front to back. On all machines, except for this Pfaff machine, my machine goes all the way to this end and then goes back this way in the way that it is threaded. But most machines, you know, go in one direction, and then you go down and then you go through the needle. But you're always going to go through the discs and then through the arm. And I was following the arrows in which direction to go. And then when you thread the needle, it's always front to back. Unless you have a industrial machine, some of them have the needle that goes sideways, and then you thread it into the machine that way. So I want to jump in right here and say some machines are different. For the basics, the machines are all the same on the way that they work, but sometimes the way that they're threaded might be just slightly different. But if you understand how they work and where the tension is in the arm, then you can understand better how to thread your machine. And then to do the bobbin, you do unthread it from the machine. And mine, so you'll have some kind of tension disc. This is my tension disc here. Some people have like the round disc to put it around, and I don't just put it around the round disc. I go in like almost like a figure 8, you know, like the beginning of a figure 8, go this way and then around and then back that way, because it can fly out of the disc. But I have a tension disc in there, and that's how mine does it. So I went that way and then I came out this other hole. So it just needs the tension there to make it taut. And then I have another little place right here that I can put it to hold it in place. And then I put it around the bobbin the way that this says, this direction. So I wound it around the direction it told me to do it a couple of times. And then here's a pro tip. I had the thread come out that hole on the top, because there's a hole on the top and a hole on the bottom. So I had it come out that hole on the top, see? And now I'm going to put that little thing right there. Boop. Click it over. And then when I wind the bobbin, I'm going to hold this taut so that I know that that thread's not going to come undone. And then on my machine, I can loosen. I don't think I can do it one-handed, but I'm going to turn this to disengage it from the wheel. Okay, so if you can see this turning a little bit on its own. Yeah, okay, so I disengaged this part. So now when I turn this wheel, it won't turn, it won't move this needle. I turned on the machine, and mine is just a little button here. Usually you can tell when the light comes on. There is a light under here. My light is broken, so I can't tell that. And then I'm just gonna sew with the foot of the machine. I'm gonna hold this up, and it's going, and that needle is not moving because I disengaged the wheel. I can go really fast, and see, it just breaks off. It just breaks off that thread, but I know that the thread is now tight on there and it's not going to come undone. And one thing you do need to pay attention to is the way that the thread is winding on the bobbin evenly, not like all on the top or all on the bottom. It has to go, this thread right here has to go up and down, so it's evenly distributed. I'll show you. You can see that it's going up and down. And if it doesn't do that for you, you can just take your finger and just move it up and down yourself. And when you're done, you just click it over and then snip it and take it off. Sometimes that's kind of hard to pull it off of there. And now I have an extra, I already have a bobbin in there, so now I have an extra bobbin that if I'm sewing along and I run out, I don't have to stop and make a new one. That's why it's good to have multiple bobbins, because you might want to fill a bunch of them if you're doing like a big project. Also keep in mind that this will eventually run out too, so keep an eye on that. So please reach out on Facebook or Instagram at My Stitch and Dollyverse, and I can help you walk through some of the parts of your machine if you're having problems. I really want to encourage people to sew because I find so much enjoyment in sewing and creating. Also, check out my Etsy store in the link below. I have cute little hair clips and all sorts of dolly sewing kits, and also some garments too if you just want to purchase a garment and look it over and decorate it yourself. So thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and ring the bell. I post videos once a week, and I am starting this whole journey on teaching people to sew for their dolls. Yay! So please reach out, leave a comment below, follow me on Instagram, Pinterest, and YouTube. Bye.